motion 2531. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Phipps. All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Motion moves.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just because we're on the record, I will note that a number of the neighbors from that applicant were here and present. They've left with the understanding it's continuance. So, but there was a lot of participation at the planning commission.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Also going to bring up now number 2533. Speak on that.
Meeting, there wasn't a continuance request, so I don't think there's any action that needs to be taken. Well, no, check with the next.
And further, just to add to the record, part of that continuance was not a request by the applicant, but for the planning bureau and the planning commission to review a rather complex and lengthy project, with a lot of moving parts before it came before the board.
Understood. We don't.
Well, you can make a motion.
Make a motion to hear that one at the October 17, 2022 meeting, unless other continuances arise. Second, stated by Mr. Hobbs. All in favor? Aye. Cover all bases.
Just a question about that. That will be the second phase of the Capitol Heights project, correct?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Well, then I'm going to call our only other case tonight, number 2532, a variance and special exception application for 1610 North 4th Street. And if the solicitor would read into the record the documents that are in the city's file.
Mr. Chairman, I have pre-marked exhibits. Starting with exhibit D1, or exhibit 1. This is a publication, which ran in the Patriot News on September 4th, September 11th, 2022. That has been set forth the time and place, and particular nature of the application. Board exhibit number 2, B2 is a letter dated September 12th, 2022. And that was authored by the deputy planning director, Jacob Bowen, and that was sent to the applicant and notifying the applicant at the time of this hearing. Board exhibit number 3 is the hearing date posted the common property request that occurred on August 31st, 2022. Board exhibit number 4 is the applicant's notification letters and proof of mailing that were required neighbors. Board exhibit number 5 is the application. Board exhibit number 6 is the 1-page containing 1 photo. Board exhibit number 7 are plans comprised of 3 pages. Board exhibit number 8 is the dated October 16th, 1998. Board exhibit number 9 is the tax claim bureau. Dated April 28th, 1997. Board exhibit number 10 is the notice of condemnation dated April 28th, 1997. Board exhibit number 11 is the dated July 30th, 1987. And board exhibit number 12 is the condemnation dated December 7th, 2011. So boards exhibits B8 and B12 are deeds that the applicant forwarded in order to establish a standing in this matter. Board exhibit number 13 is the planning bureau case report. Board exhibit number 14 is the City of Harrisburg Planning Commission resolution. So, Mr. Chairman, we have board exhibit 1 through 14.
Thank you, sir. I'm now going to swear in the zoning administrator. Mr. Bowen, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please summarize. Give a brief summarization of the case and the issues and what the city's position is.
Absolutely. So the applicant is proposing to establish a 56,800 square foot, 36 unit mixed use building with accompanied access and site improvements within the residential medium zoning district. The proposal requires special exception approvals for the multifamily dwelling component. Also requires zoning relief from the off-street parking requirements. Variance for approvals are also required for relief from aspects of section 7-.303.3A of the zoning code, including the residential unit density exceeding the maximum impervious lot coverage, setback encroachments, and the prevailing width on the block. Additional zoning relief is required to waive aspects of the landscaping requirements in section 7-307.11 and 7-307.12 of the zoning code, depending upon the nature of the businesses. The proposal for the retail kiosks fronting 4th Street, zoning relief may also be required for that as well. So the property description, the project site is comprised of 17 vacant parcels, private alleyways, and a public right-of-way known as Alley. This is just a paper street right-of-way. In total of 0.47 acres. This project site is generally bounded by Clinton Street to the north, North 4th Street to the east, properties at 328 to 352 Harris Street to the south, and Logan Street to the west. So the Planning Commission recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. Condition 1, if granted approval for the requested zoning relief, the applicant will subsequently file a preliminary lot consolidation and land development plan, and also a street vacation for any public right-of-ways through the site, and receive approval from the Planning Commission and City Council. Condition 2, the applicant shall reconfigure the accessory surface parking lot, drive aisles, and spaces to zoning code specifications, creating 3-foot wide areas along the northern and southern sides of the lot, in which landscape screening will be planted. A landscape screening will also be installed along Logan Street frontage and in all setback areas of the proposed building. The applicant shall coordinate with the owners of 1620 and 1622 North 4th Street to confirm whether a 6-foot high privacy fence would be an acceptable accommodation. Condition 3, site conditions allowing, the applicant shall construct the proposed accessory lot with pervious materials to mitigate the effects of stormwater runoff. If the site cannot accommodate pervious materials, the applicant must provide sufficient documentation indicating factors that prevent the use of such materials. This would include ore geology and work indicating, and work with CRW through the land development process to ascertain whether other stormwater management techniques such as green roof are viable. Condition 4, the Planning Bureau recommends adding a vehicular connection from the first floor parking area to Logan Street, from the Logan Street parking lot to increase internal traffic circulation associated with the project. Condition 5, the applicant will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to confirm the appropriate size and location of refuse collection on site and update the billing accounts to reflect the new use. Condition 6, the applicant will provide secure bike storage on site. The Bureau would recommend such storage occupy the location of the proposed stairway or elevator, or by providing publicly accessible sidewalk racks along North 4th Street. Condition 7, the Planning Bureau recommends that the floor plan be redesigned to have the main pedestrian building entry to be on 4th Street instead of the southwest corner of the first floor parking area, as it would be more accessible to residents and visitors. Condition 8, the Bureau would recommend that the North 4th Street and Clinton Street elevations be designed with vertically designed facade treatments to help the building better blend in with the surrounding row home streetscapes. In condition 9, the applicant will file easement applications for the proposed awnings over the commercial spaces along North 4th Street. The Planning Commission recommends the request be approved for the following reasons. Reason 1, approval of the proposal will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, which features other mixed use and medium density apartments and will bring benefits by developing long vacant lots, meeting meeting pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers' needs by installing and improving sidewalks, incorporating bike storage, and providing sufficient off-street parking for residents. Reason 2, the proposed project will provide much-needed senior housing units for the community, while also increasing the customer base for nearby local businesses and providing space for small businesses. Reason 3, the proposed project will have minimal impact on the existing off-street parking supply by given that one off-street parking space will be provided for each proposed unit with available guest parking on site. Reason 4, if the recommendations of the Planning Bureau are adopted, the project can be designed to blend into the building character of the neighborhood and soften its edges through the incorporation of a generous amount of landscape screening and new streets trees. That's all. Yeah, sorry.
You flipped the page. So.
Yeah.
Okay, the applicant, if you could please state your full name, residential address, and business title.
Matthew Long at 126 Walnut Street and Vice President of Midtown Retail.
Okay, if you could raise your right hand, I'm going to swear you in now. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, and if, please tell us about your project.
Just to start off, I believe you are aware this is one small piece in a giant puzzle. This is kind of the least complicated of everything coming down the pipeline here that we presented to you all weeks. This addresses the senior living portion. This also brings the mixed use aspect for walkability and help it bring the neighborhood back. And this is these lots in particular have sat since FEMA demolished the houses in 1974, about 2 years after Agnes. There's been no plans submitted in any records that we found to even look at these. And that really put, a huge burden to say, what can we do with this odd shaped lot, with these lots that are scattered to the left and to the right? And one of the first things that we met with was a few different established senior living facilities that are looking to expand. And that's how we adopted this project, was hoping to meet that need, to bring something different into the cities. Retirees want to come back into an urban environment rather than moving to the suburbs. And that really struck us as something we want to bring to Harrisburg.
What is the minimum age
55.
and how long will it be a senior? And how's that going to be enforced?
For the legality of it, I mean, we are fine listing it for, I believe the typical standards, if it was like affordable, would be 10, 15, and 20 years. I'd be correct in saying we don't have any objection to the timeline.
Oh, we're negotiating a 15-year lease.
So,
And who's going to manage the building?
so right now we cannot say the name. I can kind of spell it out for, we would manage the building as we do with our own. But the leasee would be a well-established firm out of Mechanicsburg who has 50+ years in senior living, and they also operate a university.
Okay, is this independent or assisted?
It will, I believe, minimal assistance is the way they put it. They do have amenities set aside for medical staff to be there.
Okay.
This is, one of their things they put forward is to keep them active. If you look, I know there's one floor plan here, but each floor will have a communal space, a gym, a small library, and a few other amenities in it. It's meant to be an active senior living.
It's the first phase of the continuum of care for seniors.
I need to swear you in
Oh,
if you're going to be.
Yeah, sure.
Come on.
I apologize.
Full name, address, business title.
My name is Chris Bryce. I live at 2901 North Front Street in Harrisburg.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, I understand what you've answered those
questions so far, so I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Phipps. Go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen. I guess I've probably seen you guys, but no, so you made a comment that you were there when they vacated those houses. I grew up in that area. I used to play up and down that area. So Matt asked, he basically asked some of my questions, but this is going to be completely ADA compliant, correct? Since this is a
Absolutely.
senior city.
Yes.
Number two, and my next set question, what's the price point on this?
So
We're talking senior citizen.
yes, this is, for legal terms, it will not be considered affordable. Now, they work with income restricted. 90% of their applicants are on a fixed income. Of course, that varies, but this would not be listed under affordable. Now, one thing I brought up early on, this is one small piece. The overall proposal for our Capitol Heights, because this is in Capitol Heights and Marketplace, has a 20% overall for affordable in it. It's just not figured into this, just mainly because getting into the legality of it would be kind of a nightmare, because they do work with, it could be a state pension, it could be a city pension, it could be that they are on the Section 8 voucher program, it could be.
Next question, security.
I got giddy because we only had one case tonight. I did skip a part. Does the applicant agree with the facts and issues that were stated by the zoning administrator?
The only thing that I would address that we did in the planning commission was that the recommendation for rear access from Logan Street. If we do that, we actually eliminate 3 parking spaces. And that's, so this building, it doesn't look like a lot on paper when you look at it, but if you look at the parking layout, your typical parking space out to out was a 2-lane drive center is 60 feet. We have 80 feet and 68 feet. So we have ample room for turnaround in here. Losing the parking spaces, we've had 4 public hearings this year that we held on our own to address the neighborhood. And of course, one of the first things you always hear is parking. We do not want a burden on our streets. We do not want it taken away. So and we've geared this towards not only 1 per tenant, but also additional overflow parking, because these are seniors. They're going to have guests. Their families are going to come over. So losing 3 parking spaces, potentially 4, depending on how you shake out the land development, with the 3 foot that they're requesting also, is just something we want to do. We have the engineering that we need to accommodate with just 1 point of view. So that would be the only thing I would not agree with on their recommendations. But I would like to address the trash. This is a big thing that I believe this is probably the 22nd time I've been in front of the zoning hearing board. When we go through our land development plan, we work very, good with the public works to establish the trash. And we already had a brief conversation last year that this, if you look, there is a pedestrian right of way that fronts out to Harris Street. And that's how we would accommodate that. It's not, there's no objection or anything to that, just like it noted that the public works would recommend the trash to go to Harris, and we can accommodate that via that public walkway. And that we're acceptable to everything else.
So if I'm looking at I think it's I don't know which one, I guess it's the first one in our packet. It has the grayed out building with the 2 parking spaces. No, I'm not looking at that one. Yeah. So where's the trash gonna lay on that?
Okay, so if you're looking, this would be, make sure I have my bearing right. Yep, this is Harris Street,
Right,
bottom
those,
of the page, and this would be Logan.
right,
The trash would come, because you have your elevators and everything right here.
right.
The trash would be able to come out this rear entrance and go down the newly created pedestrian right of way, because that's actually gonna be about 8 feet wide. So if we had a dumpster on the rear corner, or we had individual bins, however public works shakes out, we can take it down here. So they do not want to go down Logan, and they do not want to have be holding stuff up on 4th Street. Quentin is kind of like Logan. It's a small section. Harris is, yes, yep. And then what I was saying with the parking situation, if you look at that auxiliary parking space, you have to have your aprons and everything cut into the building we would lose 29 feet, so it's 3 parking spaces guaranteed. Possibly if we need any space on the sides, we could lose a 4th, and that's why we would object to that recommendation.
So if I'm parking in this 12 space parking lot, how do I get into are there doors to get into the building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, there would be, so the doors would be, if you look at A 1.1, they're over on the side. And I would like to note on the front entrance being on 4th Street, there will be an entrance. By all right, it could be considered a main entrance. But as we discussed in the planning commission meeting, most people will be pulling in their vehicle and using the elevator to go up, or if they're in the auxiliary parking lot, they're going to go in the rear of the building. We will absolutely accommodate having one there, but we don't foresee it being the main entrance. There will be one.
It did mention bus. Where's the bus stop though?
The bus stop
saw
on 4th, I thought was.
Fourth and Harrisburg.
Yeah, it's up, it's up and beyond this building.
Right, but if I'm walking back from the bus stop, if
Oh,
I
no,
don't
you-
have a car, I
Yeah,
want to
you-
come in for it. I don't want
Yep.
to walk around behind the
No, no,
building.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Entry here
Okay.
somewhere.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
So there, I don't know if you guys have the updated plans. I know the digital copy has the updated, because if you look at what was originally submitted here, we met with the planning bureau
Mhm.
or the work on the front facade here. This is now a storefront and it will have a door there. So they'll be able to enter from the front.
To my residency. That's
Yes, yeah, they'll be, because there was the staircase located in the front corner.
Okay.
Well, midway, through, I
that's-
should say. Sorry.
You say staircase, this, there will be, since this is a 4-story.
There
building,
will be an elevator too. Yep.
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
No, every bit of the path from every door will be ADA compliant to the elevator.
One question
turn.
I had too was that when I said the parking spots, you're gonna have entry into the building from there. Weather being what it is, and your senior citizens, so you're gonna have some type of weather overhang. It goes out from the building and meets the parking lot per se, instead of, I'm just asking.
Yeah,
Okay, 'cause
I
it-
don't think encroachment wise, we would, because you, at this point, you would only be entering from Clinton Street. You'd be pulling straight into the building and they'll be covered from that point. I don't know that we would have, I mean, that's a shallow lot there. I think,
Okay.
think if we do anything, we'd encroach on the road itself more than the right away.
And my next. I've talked about price points of security, since this is a senior citizens place and it's. I see how you build it. Who's gonna handle security? Is that gonna be part of the building management people?
Well, we are negotiations. Potential renter, they've talked about handling that part of it. So we'll handle physical plant and they're going to handle the operations. So, and that would include security.
Entry, exit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're at the very beginning stages of negotiation. So, we really haven't talked about those particulars a lot yet.
As far as manned security, I'm not sure if they would have that. I know some of their locations, they have like a little patrol and everything. But as far as egress and everything into the building, this, of course, the parking area will have most likely a magnetic card. Each door would have a magnetic card into it to have it as a secure facility.
Would you be opposed to having cameras and stuff surrounding the building that look into the parking lots and the streets facing?
I believe
At the
that,
entry points.
yeah, I believe that would be.
And the hallways in the building, since there's 4 stories. Okay, there should be something. I
Absolutely.
guess for senior citizens, you want to basically sell the safety.
Safety, yep,
Extreme safety,
absolutely.
yes, and if there's anything, bingo, there'll be rapid response. And doesn't necessarily mean it has to be on-site security, but it's tied into HPE. So there will be rapid response. So, okay. You did say something too. There were, when I looked at the planning condition, the reports, there were 9 items. You had some questions about items number 8 and number 9. I think you approved, you agreed on everything there, but those 2 you were somewhat iffy on.
Yes, so the awnings, I don't believe there was any issue with the awnings. That was just a clarification that we'd be required I think that was a discussion we'd be required to apply for those reliefs. And then the front facade, it was it was one of those things where, you know, we put a good bit of time and effort into the design. And it leaves a very vague implication of what it would be, because at that point, it comes down to the planning bureau. Mr. Bowen is leaving at the end of October. That leaves it to one person's opinion to design the front of this building. It's not the public has seen these over and over for 2 years now. We first met with the public in 2020. We had plenty of hearings in 21. We've had 4 this year. And, you know, one of the things that people liked was the architecture to it. And so with the U.S. Secretary of Interior design aspects, when you go into a semi-historic neighborhood or a historic neighborhood at this point, you are supposed to differentiate between new and old. And that's what we set to do with incorporating the stone and the drive-it and the brick all together. So it kind of that recommendation we felt went a little backwards to making this not look like the existing, to having that fine line of separation between new.
Yeah, and just to clarify a little bit on that condition 8, it is a bit vague. I do agree. Part of that's intentional in the sense to give more flexibility in design, but basically the part that we recommended the planning commission is when you see that vertical differentiation would be for this to be more similar to the row home that are around there for a design aspect, because one of the variances being requested is that the building width is going over that 20% of the block. And part of that is to prevent basically a large building taking up the whole facade of a street. So having the building split up from different facade materials, such as say splitting it between 3 different materials from top to bottom vertically, would give it that more row home appearance in a sense. To kind of not have it overwhelming with one facade. So that's kind of the idea behind that. We're not, you know, the planning bureau is not going to require what materials to be used, things like that. It's more of just having, because right now in the rendering, you'll see that there is some variations between materials. We would just like to see that from different between the vertical, not kind of horizontal between the floors. And that's all related to that one variance where it goes over that 20% of the block.
I was thinking more aesthetics. I'm gonna bring back my Manhattan days, because you have buildings there and a lot of times selling point, that was that on it, that overhang is a major selling point. I know almost all the places on Park Avenue, you know, first thing they do, they rebuild them and everything else, but they put that overhang out and it's being.
Yeah, the marquee and the awning.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. That's what our biggest pushback on it was just the legality to it. How do you enforce that once you put it into it? And then of course, like I said, it goes back to the design. We wanted that line of separation to not make it look. I guess I'm actually
looking at ritzy. Okay,
yeah.
It's a senior citizens place, but
yeah,
man, bam, it's
exactly. Yep.
That outward appearance is going to be the selling point, but it'll also be the selling point for the community too.
Correct.
Okay, when people look at that, they're going to say, "Hey, wow, we're not row homes. We just got up." It makes it more acceptable. That's my idea. I'm finished. I have some of these crazy questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ross.
Good evening. So I just had a question kind of going back to the rent subject. So I know you said you don't have a specific number and it's not going to be classified as affordable housing. But do you have any estimate or range that you think would expect the rent rates to be for that? I know similar builds have been anywhere between the $800 marker, but I've also seen, you know, when it's a 2-bedroom that's 1,200 square feet go up to 1,500. I mean, that is the reality, and that's why I don't want to throw a legal term out in a situation like this. But that goes back to this being small piece in this, because the overall project, when you put the number of units in, 20% will be affordable.
But I guess I'm still asking, just even if you're not counting that 20% that's going to be affordable, is there any expectation at this point, or when would there be expectation or known?
As you see, the market right now is all over the place. This goes back to my personal opinion, is that you're going to probably see we're in a housing crunch right now, but now we're seeing higher interest rates. we're gonna see less building. That's gonna drive it up, but then it's gonna drive it back down at a sharp decline. So to say for a project that we just developed in phase one, took 18 months from time of zoning approval to actually breaking ground now. Just know what it's gonna be in 18 months. I can't commit or say. I would say it's gonna be within that, 1,000 to 1,250 range.
Okay, all right. And does that rent cover anything on facilities, or would that be separate thing that is the responsibility?
I believe it'd be kind of a standard apartment lease. Water, sewer, trash would be on the building, and then your electric and cable.
And I just want to make sure I heard this correctly. So on the parking is going to be 36 parking spaces of that.
40, yeah.
Okay, so 40.
We have 42 out of 42. Okay.
I would just like to add, so the organization we're talking to is a nonprofit and it's a religious-based organization. So they basically have the whole continuum of people with needs. And there's a allotted amount that and I think all of these types of organizations have for basically low income, but that we won't be able to determine that.
Right. So you mentioned that, I'm just curious, you mentioned that you had some public hearings throughout the last couple of years. Do you have any, I guess, reflection on the amount of participation in those in terms of the number of people from the community?
So this year, so these plans for the senior living, we addressed last year when we were going through Capitol Heights phase one. I would say we had about 100 people or so come out on, I believe we had 4 hearings last year. This year we held 4. The first one, we had 2 people come out. The second one, we had a good turnout. We had probably about 30. The last 2, actually the third one was the busiest. That was probably about 45 people. And the last one we had on a Thursday night, I believe it was only probably 15 or 20. And I would say none of them were repeat. There were some that were, of course, from last year that came. And we had good feedback. We had, I'll be very truthful with this. We had one, so this is 1610 would be the address. 1619, the resident came last year, was objective to the project. We met with her, we met with the community group of the new houses that were built in the late 2000s for the Capitol Heights, and kind of, cut back some details, made these not as grandiose, I would say, because they were worried about the concern of their housing not being as enticing to buyers or renters coming through. So we've had a lot of community dialogue, and we've turned adversary into someone that is supportive of the project. It came to it, and we talked for an hour and a half the last time, just going over stuff on the upcoming phases, what they're going to be here for that zoning hearing. I mean, we've had good turnout. We haven't had any direct negative feedback directly to us. There've been questions and concerns, like for instance the trash. That was one of the things that we addressed. Two sets of separate people asked that, and we addressed that. We said, hey, we've been talking with Public Works. We have kind of plan not to hold up Fourth, not to have them coming down a small alleyway. But I think we've had very good feedback. For this year, I'd say the number would be close to 100 people that came out between those 4 hearings.
Okay. Yeah, and that's one thing I was wondering about when I asked it about, like you mentioned, the one person concerns of having that type of building there in the midst of pretty much all residential. So, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
So you still need to go through, if I'm reading this right, some processes to
The land
vacate-
development, the street vacation.
Yeah,
Yep.
street vacations. Okay.
Yep, and so last year, this is directly, the rear corner of this would be directly adjacent to our Capitol Heights redevelopment, phase 1. that, you know, we went through the same thing. There was 3 vacations that we had, roads that had to be vacated there. But we've also worked on several other projects that came down the pipeline last year. We know of the changes to the street vacation. And most of them were things that we were already doing. You gotta have the neighbors' consent. You gotta have them actually sign off on it now. That was stuff we were doing before, and we're not, I mean, with these here, these are alleys that, you know, they're not being utilized by anyone. The community garden isn't even been in there in years. Most people, they have their walkway. The ones on Harris already have their walkway. They already have that easement. We through there, and everything else is old grocers alleys from pre-1972. Yeah, yeah, pre-1970.
How did you get to the unit mix? Why this amount of, why this many units, or why not more? Why not less?
So this used to be about 17, 18 houses, and that's when you get into the density request. To upgrade the infrastructure for, say, so this was 17 townhouses originally. You could realistically, by today's standards, put about 8 townhouses there. And that would run in the range of an extra 700,000 to 800,000 in utility upgrades to the area. And when you get into that, you start pushing everything up, and we're not going to be listing $350,000 townhouses and getting them sold in the city. So that pushes you right away into the thought of multifamily. And then you really run the numbers and say, where can you break even on something like this? Because Harrisburg, I'll be very straightforward. Our entire outlook in our company is 100% Harrisburg City based. That has been my primary focus for over the last 5 years. That's what we've done, is redevelopment, not development. I want to call it redevelopment, because this is, you know, things were planned, didn't happen. Things were planned and did happen, they went bankrupt. So you really trying to say this is going to be a profit making experience is hard, but where do you get to that line that you know you can break even? When you figure in the land development plan cost, the engineering cost, the legal cost, the value of our time cost, the 2 years of planning that go into this, and you put everything down on paper, this is where we ended up on this building saying, okay, we can make this happen and we can maintain it for the next 15 years. These were the numbers were.
So you're looking at breaking even 50 years. The reason I ask this question is because it's a set of buildings uptown, but inflation is they go 25 years. And I think that we should start profit level by maintaining
Governor Square.
Yes, thank you. I don't want to have the same buildings.
No, that's
They're basically looking at 15 years of breaking cost. That will
Yeah, well, first of all, these are really good questions, but we live here. I live in Uptown. I own City House Bed and Breakfast. I've lived in the city for 30 years. I'm sick and tired of people not taking care of their stuff. So, I mean, obviously, you know, that talk is cheap, but I mean, I put 30 years in of fixing stuff up. So I totally agree with you. And as long as I own it, it's going to be taken care of.
no, great question. I mean, that's
So because of the size of what you've gotten to, that gets to the side setbacks. That's
Yes,
really
and-
there.
Yep, and that also goes along with the urban setting and the comprehensive plan. The previous administration and this administration I don't want to say they want higher density. They do, and round terms, they want higher density. But they also want the urban fit out. They want they want a city. They don't want to see suburbia in the city. And that's where we're taking the prevailing widths. And I do, plenty of conversation with the planning bureau that the requirement for the 20% prevailing is a very suburban requirement when you're looking at the city, because when you want development, you want something that's going to be a larger structure. You want something that you know is gonna be there and gonna bring something to the neighborhood.
And I saw something in there about the 12 space lot about you're gonna look into the impervious
Yeah,
surface.
and that is-
But
that-
you mentioned, I was reading the transcript that was put in here from planning that you do use impervious when you can.
Everywhere we can, yes,
Okay,
and phase one of the redevelopment, we had proposed, originally pavers the whole way through. We have an access road that accesses 8 townhomes and then the community center building. And when you ran it through engineering, the compaction rates weren't there. So we did a porous macadam as the main road and then it's permeable pavers off of it. I don't know if this is gonna have, it's only 12 spaces. It's not a thoroughfare road. It's just a back up and pull in. It might work for pavers, but at the very least, it would most likely have the porous macadam and then the spaces themselves be the permeable paver. That, I mean, that's a big thing we always look for. Anywhere we can incorporate it, go ahead.
Is that counted in this impervious lot coverage of where we're 7? I think you're 7% above.
Yeah, so the
required.
calculations in the report was considering this being pervious of the lot, but the request is still to exceed that regardless.
And even if we can't do the permeable pavers, the porous macadam is considered by capital region standards.
The landscape screening. Was that addressed in the?
Yes, so one of the conditions involves, if you look at the Logan Street parking lot, the parking lot outside of the building. So the applicant they do have space to redesign that to include that screening on the property sides. It's more of actually facing some of the, along some of the buildings potentially where there might not be able to be some screening. And that would be pretty consistent with the existing urban form where most of the houses are row homes. Obviously, you can't have a screening if you're attached because there's space.
And we've worked through other land development plans on the Capitol Heights redevelopment and other projects. We work with the city arborist, our engineering goes back and forth with the planning bureau and the city planning bureau and the city arborist to determine what we're going to plant, how we're going to plant it, where it's going to go. And you know, we have to check that box on the SAUDO packet regardless.
I'm going to open up the floor to the audience. If there's anyone here with anything legally relevant to say, microphone is yours. And I am going to take that. Go ahead.
So we were taking a look at the Mr. Long moved last condition number 3 because of the facade. And then the other one, was that number 7, Jacob, where there was a request to change the access point?
I believe it's condition number 4 where we're looking to, yes.
I had it as 7 too on my hands.
Number 4. Did this planning take into account set forth that condition?
Yes, so yeah, looking at the 9-foot width parking spots that would be inside of the building. So as the applicant stated, they would lose 3 additional spaces. So if that condition were to be voted on and approved, they also have additional requests for off-street parking, which would be actually 4 at a minimum. It wasn't part of the discussion of the meeting.
Not on this particular plan. It is such a large wandering set of properties that's going to come in here. This is the first flavor you're getting of what's a much larger thing to come. I believe some of the discussion is that some of the facilities will have parking that different properties will cross over to, if I understand the process correctly. We're a long way from there. We're a long way from the land development plans. You know, in that sense, I mean, you're going to see a much more detailed thing as we move forward at planning and city council. For this one, no, it's, you know, the planning bureau had its recommendation. I think it's fair to say that the one recommendation was less than clear to the planning commission, but they supported the recommendations as written.
You know, I would say for condition 4, I mean, I see what the applicant's saying, we're going to lose parking, definitely going to be a major concern of the community. And then the planning bureau's kind of perspective with that was with the number of vehicles that are going to be entering and exiting along Clinton Street, with that being a one access and egress point. Clinton Street's about 12 to 14 feet wide. So just increasing that number of traffic just on one street to access this property. Kind of the thinking behind that was having a point at Logan Street for egress and ingress would kind of reduce that flow. But obviously, the applicant's mention of concerns with parking, you know, the community, I'm sure, would probably have potentially a different take on that.
Is Clinton Street one way or two way? Which way?
It goes towards the,
It goes
Yes.
west.
So you would come in fourth.
It's my corner. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, then
So. I'd say
Okay, so-
Clinton and Logan are tied for about how thin they're about as narrow
Well,
as two things can be.
You think it's gonna be okay to pull in and out of there?
Yes,
Because I'm
yeah.
thinking of the one parking lot by the millworks where they want you to go back
Yeah.
towards.
no, and the one thing with it
Can't
too.
make that turn.
Is if you would enter off of Logan, you'd be right back out onto Clinton anyway. You're probably not gonna go back out on Logan because then that's gonna dump you down to Hamilton. I guess you know, it would dump you right back. You would have to turn on
Yeah,
Clinton again
Logan's not
anyway.
gonna go to Harris.
Yeah, no,
And it wouldn't solve the problem. It would just
End
give
up on
more
Third
options.
Street no matter what.
regardless, yes. You're gonna go back to Clinton or you're gonna go up to Hamilton and come back down anyway. Or you're gonna cut through our new development off of Logan.
Yeah, the line of sight coming off Clinton's going to always be tougher than Hamilton. It's just the way that works.
We're gonna take a quick recess.
An I.
with the conditions set forth in the planning conditions resolution for approval without condition 4. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Phipps. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I just have one comment I wanted to add. I definitely like the concept that's presented here in terms of the mixed use senior living facility. I just think my concern is based on pretty much this year as we're going through these different hearings and trying to make sure that we maintain some consistency in our decision making, especially as it relates to the zones that have been laid out according to the zoning code here in the city of Harrisburg. So I just wanted to add that comment in.
I agree wholeheartedly. It goes back to, I think when we were all put on the board, that there needs to be some changes made within our zoning code and zoning map. And at some point, I think that will get done, but we got to get through the first year of a new administration.
The last time it only took like a quarter of a century to get it.
Right.
So,
So maybe we can do it within 15 years instead of 25. So with a motion on the floor, are any votes in favor of the motion? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? Aye. One against. The motion passes 2-1. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to take a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Mr. Phipps. All in favor? Aye. Tonight's meeting's over.
Yeah, I was.